Welcome to Backyards and Bevvies. Grab your favorite bevy, pull up a chair, and enjoy the ride. Hey, B&B fam. This podcast is sponsored to you by BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. Is there something getting in the way of your happiness? I know when I traveled the world, I had many days where BetterHelp's worldwide service of licensed professional therapists could have helped me speak to someone no matter where I was in the world about whatever was happening with my life, and with zero judgment. With their ability to match me with a therapist that best fits me, I know my mental health would have been way better back then. Believe me, I needed it. But I'm here to share a way for you to take back control of your mental health by telling you about BetterHelp's awesome services they have for you to talk with a pro about your life through their app or just online. Whether it is a video session or some simple messaging, their team is here to help. I went to check out the app for myself just to see how easy it was to use, and after a series of questions, I was told I would be able to start matching with a therapist in under 48 hours. And what is super rad is that it's affordable and they even offer financial aid too. So come join the 2 million users that have already been helped and gain back control of your mental health by visiting betterhelp.com/backyards for 10% off your first month. Remember, BetterHelp is therapy done securely online. Don't forget to use the special code BACKYARDS and let BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, help you to start living a happier life today. Hey.
Hi.
Welcome to Kitchens and Bevvies again.
Yes.
We've had a couple busy weeks where it just doesn't make sense to go and set it all up. So we are bringing you your midweek treat with a little bit of laughter and life lessons here in the kitchen once again. And it's funny because as I was setting it up, I was like, here we are again, putting this in the kitchen. I know that no one cares that we're in the kitchen doing this because most of the people listen. There's a good majority that watch, but at the end of the day, it's the message that we're continually saying and talking about, and we're laughing, but we're also we're talking, and that's the biggest point to this whole podcast is we're just sharing our stories with people that hopefully they can engage with our stories, and whether it sheds light on something they're going through or whatever, we're just trying to talk. So whether we're talking in the kitchen or we're talking in the backyard, it doesn't really actually matter.
No.
The biggest thing that I wanted to kind of talk about today was exactly that. As I was building this, I was like, it's kind of crazy because you could listen to this show or you could watch this show and be like, well, it's just 2 microphones and a cooler.
It's way more than that.
Well, there's a whole process to setting something up, and we talked a little bit about signal flow last time and how I was starting to introduce myself to what it is to get into an industry and be good at it. Because you can walk into anything and be average or subpar or even a little above average, but to really excel, you have to kind of start taking all the little details in. And so building this podcast each time we do it, it's not set up like a normal studio. Like most people have 2 chairs, a desk, and then their microphones are strapped to the table and their computer never leaves. And it's a very simpler process than what we have when we do a podcast. We actually have to load it in.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, we don't have a semi-truck pulling up, and it's a little different.
You have to, you guys can't see it. There's a lot of cables all over the place, and the laptop and the table and all of the fun things.
And it kind of started to hit me like, oh, wow. To me, it's second nature. Like when I was running the cables this morning, I kind of made a joke to you. Like, it looks like I'm setting up for a stage performance, like the opening act, because everything was all nicely coiled, because we were still cooking breakfast. We were doing all these like other little parts to our lives that we can't miss out on, but we also have to get a little ahead of the game. And so a little ahead of the game was prepping our stage.
Yeah.
So when you go to a show, so many people I've taken backstage at shows and done all these little kind of behind the scenes tours, and people are always amazed, like, whoa, I would have never guessed this is under here. I would have never seen this, or you just don't see or can imagine it because we're so good at hiding in the dark.
Right.
And much like my life, I was really good at hiding in the dark.
Yes.
I hid so many things. And partly some of that came from the obsession I built with the travel in my brain as I went through Full Sail. Like, oh my gosh, it's win at all cost. I want to go on tour no matter what it means to anyone else. And I did, unfortunately, hurt a lot of people in that process. But that story we're not going to go down that road right now. Well, what I really want to share with people is the idea of what it took me to learn how to make this second nature to me, because I don't really think about it.
Right.
I know all these little parts and pieces, and I know what it takes. And even though there's a video involved, there's a little bit of lighting involved, like all these little things I got taught out of, over 10 years or maybe like 15 years ago, and I started to put these in my brain. And what really I can say made myself valuable from a talking point always to my company was that I was willing to always listen to the other departments because a lot goes into a show. It's not just audio. Like, as much as we want to say oh, audio is the most important. Yeah, it is. It has a very, very, you're not going to walk away humming the lighting, or the video. You're going to walk away humming the songs that night. But you also want to see it. You also want to feel it. You want to be a part of these shows. And that's what the lasers and the smoke and the video walls all do. They bring you into these shows.
Right.
So we hit on the fact that I went through Full Sail. It was a giant overview. Great school. I met John. I met Brace. I met Dave. I met all these guys that changed my career or changed my path in life. But Kelly, and what Kelly did for me, though, is he showed me and put my hands on all of those pieces. Because at Full Sail, it was a controlled environment.
Right.
The stage never moved, really.
Right.
We could move it if we decided to do things, but it was a static stage. It stayed there. The truss stayed there. The power that was run into the building, we never had to run our own power that much, I should say. There was little bits of all these things, but it wasn't a daily occurrence.
Right.
With Kelly, it was a daily occurrence. And so I wanted to look back on that, and I wanted to give people and paint people a picture of that process of learning and getting humbled constantly, because you think that you know something, or you think that you're good at something, or you think, especially growing in a career. We hit on that Napoleon Hill quote, to be a master at something, or be good at something, takes 10 years or 10,000 hours.
Right.
In that process, though, I think that's where a lot of people get down on themselves, or they fail, and then they say, "Oh, I can't do it."
Right.
No, but that's the thing is, though, failing is those moments that take you eventually to the 10,000 hours.
Yeah, you've got to learn.
And then all of a sudden it becomes second nature. All of a sudden you're like, "Oh, I got that."
Yeah. So
what was really cool is when Kelly took me in on that 4th of July, I got to actually see what a show was. Oh, wow. Here's this mobile stage rolling into place. Well, you have to fold it all out. You have to put these little, wood shims under places that, the legs need this. You have to level
the ground's uneven. And
oh my gosh. And yeah, on Wall Street, it was like a 2nd century Roman road. It was brick that just a bunch of drunk people had smashed their heads into, and it wasn't not even in where they had it. It was at the end of the street. And so then you're dealing with people that are just walking through, people that are, it is incredible to me how, I think in this industry, I learned how blind people can be sometimes.
Yeah.
Or just how we put our horse blinders on during the day, and sometimes we don't see what's happening around us. And so, trying to load in a show through a crowd, or load out through a crowd, or run a cable, or run a camera. I mean, it's incredible because I can always see it at shows.
Yeah.
You can see the camera guy in the pit just trying to be like, "Hey guys, can I just get 4 feet here, or a foot here, so you guys can stop hitting my camera or my arm?" And it's just one of those things, but we get so caught up in the show or our days that we kind of forget about what others are doing around us.
Right.
And it was, I learned that. And then all of a sudden I was able to like, oh, wow, okay. For me to, once again, be successful in this industry, I'm going to have my eyes wide open all the time.
Right.
And that's, practice. I clearly wasn't like perfect at it, and I'm still not perfect at it, but it definitely helped.
Yeah.
So you've been to shows and you see the backstage area all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we always think that it's such a simple thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
Even on the management side, I used to get caught up on this, like, they freaking come in, I think our cats are just
going wild,
running through the house. Sorry, excuse me. I used to always be like, man, these freaking manager types, they come in, they freaking walk off this bus like nothing happened today, and then they come out front of house and just bug me. Well, that's not the case at all.
Definitely not the case.
You answered 400 emails that morning. You had to tell 30 people no.
Mm-hmm. You're managing guest lists. You're managing the artist's day, making sure everybody else is good to go. I mean, there's definitely a lot behind it.
Well, even dealing with just getting tickets from a computer,
Mm-hmm.
From signal flow from someone picking up their tickets at will call at 5 p.m. when you got the email
radio meet and greets
at
all
2 p.m.
Things, yeah.
It's a process. The email comes in, then you have to look at, are there any tickets available? Then you
Usually
have to
not.
then you have to then persuade the box office to add 2 more after they've already done their paperwork. And
if there's even any tickets left, if the show's not completely sold out. I mean, there's so many different variables. And we as consumers are very lucky that we never have to see that, though. We can just walk into an arena and be like, sweet, here's Tool Showtime.
Showtime. I'm going to go get a beer and a popcorn.
Yep.
Working for Kelly taught me all that because I got to see at a very early start to even Full Sail. As I came up through Full Sail, I was coming up with Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so cool because it was a small crew. A lot of times we didn't have stagehands. It was just me and Kelly and Steven, Lucas and Brian loading these shows in. Sometimes in the arena at UCF.
Wow.
Or UCF, University of Central. I had to think about that for a second. Because he knew, I guess, maybe Kelly went to school out there, but he had a connection. So we used to do a lot of like the student week. Like they had like a student week where they would have concerts and comedians and who knows? Oh, they had like this one thing where they would like jump in the water of like this like little pond, but we'd have to go set speakers up out there.
Oh yeah. Like a polar plunge or something, even though it doesn't get cold in Florida.
I was going to say, but it's Florida, so it's maybe like a boiling plunge.
I guess so, yeah.
Maybe there's an alligator in there. I don't know.
Yikes.
But all of these different shows gave me the ability to open my eyes to the possibilities of what this industry was. Because it wasn't just touring anymore. It was like, okay, there is touring, but I still have such a big weight, like so much to grow before I even get there.
Right.
But me being the arrogant guy I was.
You're like, I already know everything.
But once I started, that's I think one of my biggest downfalls is the second I start something, I automatically assume that I'm good at it. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a detriment, and it's also probably some sort of
it can go both ways.
It could go both ways. Mm-hmm. Like with this podcast, at times I think like, oh, I'm doing so good, everything's awesome. And then I get humbled by like something crashing or not saving properly. And then I have to go back and redo it or figure out something. And so with Kelly and going to Full Sail, I would be able to go and do these classes. Then like he would always have a show for me. I did that 4th of July show, and pretty quick after he gave me another phone call and he was like, hey, I have this loadout. You want to come do it? And I was like, what's a loadout? Like, well, please explain this to me because I don't get it. And he did it in very simple terms. Well, the show goes in, and when the show's over, we got to load it out.
You got to take all the gear out.
Okay,
yeah. Remove everything that does not live there all the time.
And I would say 99% of the time, that's everything.
Everything, yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this loadout. But the other part of me was like, well, I don't want to do it for free though. And it was the first time negotiating something in an industry that I was very green, very, very green at.
Very, yeah.
But I knew that my work ethic would always be that would be my one, I guess, fallback, or that would be my one thing that I could give someone. Maybe I don't know what all these terms are. Maybe I really don't know even how to run a console or any of these things yet. But I know that I'll come in and I'll give you as much as I can physically, and with me being here, I won't stop until you're done. So he was like, okay, yeah, cool. And so we negotiated a little rate, and I was like, wow, oh my gosh, I'm going to do my first paid gig. And it was such a cool thing. I was like, whoa, I did one gig and now I'm getting paid in this industry that I was terrified at what point was I ever going to get paid.
Right.
I mean, because we can all like set goals and fantasies, and our aim is super high, which I think is very, very good. And my aim was high. My aim was, since day one, was getting on a tour bus.
Right.
I'm going to get there. Well, here was like the first step. Okay, well, now I'm getting paid in this industry. So maybe now I'm a part of this industry. So it was really rewarding for me because I was there. I was like, oh, I was able to go to school and tell my fellow students like, hey, I actually have a gig.
Look at me.
And some of them had like small gigs too. You know, some of them had been in Florida for a little while. So they already had established friendships, or maybe mixing at little clubs. And
right.
So, but to me, it wasn't about competition. It was about me, and then how can I don't want to say boost anybody else up, but how can we boost each other in a way? And so we were all always very let's clap for each other.
Yeah.
Hey, cool. You're going to go do that. Awesome. Oh, I'm going to go do this. Like, if there's an extra person needed, I'll call you. And that's kind of what we did in this small class. And it was really nice having 10 people because you kind of knew what everyone was doing anyway. So, all right, I get my first gig. I'm like, this is awesome. And that's where I met a guy named Lucas.
Love Lucas.
And what was awesome about meeting Lucas was, though he wasn't going to school for audio, I don't believe. I think he was registered at the community college, or maybe at UCF. But he was working for his uncle, and he wanted to be in the industry too.
And Kelly
was his uncle. And so what was really cool, and not only was it amazing that we bonded and we still talk to this day, and he's coming to visit soon. And,
next week, yeah.
You know, he's another one of my best friends in this world. We've been through a lot together. And a lot of that was this growing, coming of ages and wanting to be in this industry. We grew together, and we were able to laugh at our like ridiculousness stuff that we would do or think like, oh, this is definitely going to work. Oh, that didn't work. The trailer fell off.
Did that actually happen?
Yeah, it did happen one time. That's why they put those chains there.
Oh.
So if you don't lock the hitch down, or, you know, the tongue down, there's a high probability that the roop will come off on a bump.
Whoops.
Yeah, whoop did he scoop poop.
Bad news.
It was bad news. But it was really nice having someone, because at Full Sail, I still had a lot of people that knew more than me. With Lucas, he knew some like I did, but we were able to help each other learn other things. You know, I can look back at one moment, and I never stenciled anything in my life before. So I was stenciling all the road cases, because after time they get beat up riding in trucks or getting pushed down hallways. They just get.
And the purpose of that is so that people know whose gear belongs to who.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yeah, because you're going into these venues and there's all the other vendors, so you want to make
hundreds of road cases. Yeah.
Well, and that's part of that thing that I was talking about with talking to stagehands. You know, you have to be able to identify your stuff quickly in a loadout situation. You know, load-ins, or let's say a load-in takes 10 hours, a loadout will take an hour and a half. You know, depending on the gear, it could take 3 hours. But a typical show can be completely taken down in about 2.5 hours.
Gotcha.
And so Yeah, but part of that is having everything set up. And so this was some of that pre-prepping and pre-learning what I was going to do on the road. Even though I had no idea how I was going to get on the road yet. Like I had visions of it. I was like, oh, okay. Like I clearly still have to finish school.
Yes.
But Kelly would allow me to go work in the shop. And part of that was learning gear, learning terminology, working with Steven, working with Brian, watching these guys who have been doing it for 20 years already tell me like, yeah, that's great that they showed you that because that's the 100% textbook way.
Right.
But in a pinch or in a matter of like troubleshooting or here's variations to that. And I think we all learn that through our career.
Sure.
You know, I'm sure you know how to do things managerial wise that sure you learned it in college one way, but now you've learned little hacks.
Right.
And so that's what it was learning little hacks all the time. But here I was painting all these cases black, you know, because that's what if you have a yellow road case, it's going to stand out.
Right. And everything is supposed to blend in because the focus is supposed to be on the artist and what's happening on stage.
And that's why it's so intriguing when people go backstage and they say, well, like, oh my gosh, where does all this stuff go?
Yeah. It's like, well, you can't really see it because it's black and it blends into the background.
And it hides and all this stuff. And so, yeah, so here I was painting all these road cases and we used a special paint that, you know, it gave like a little, like a small shimmer to it, I guess. Everyone has their own little things, but they had the paint, they knew which one. So I'm rolling it. I'd sanded all like the places off that needed it, and I start rolling paint. I get it, they all cure, and it was time for stencils. Paying attention to details is very important.
Yes.
And we talk about this all the time, and there I was thinking I knew it. Right. Like, oh, I'm just I start grabbing the letters to the company, AIPS. But I'd put like APIS.
Oops.
But never like checked it. And it's like a woodworker, you know, the whole like measure twice, cut once.
Right.
Well, I didn't measure even once. I just.
How many cases did you spray incorrectly before you figured it out?
I think I ended up getting like 2 cases, but that was the best part about working with Lucas was he was very similar to me where he didn't the joking wasn't ever held back. You know, he walked in and was like, wow, you're dumb.
Like that is not
and I was
correct.
like, what are you talking about? This is beautiful. I've even like centered them up and da 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 da. And
he's like, yeah, you spelled it wrong.
Yeah, but yeah. And it doesn't like it's a very simple spelling. It's only 4 letters and you got 2 of them backwards. So from day one, we hit it off so well because of that. And it was awesome that I would get to go do these shows with a guy that was green alongside me, a couple experts, and then this owner that, yeah, like, I mean, and it was cool shows too. Like we got to go do the Daytona 500 a lot of times.
That's cool.
And Kelly had such a vast network of people that he worked for or that would call him to do their audio or lighting or because his company was all inclusive. So we had staging stuff, we had lighting stuff. I think the only thing that we really didn't do was pyro and lasers.
Okay.
But we had video. His dad was a manager in the business, and all I know is that they had a lot to, or maybe not a lot to do, but they had something to do with like Creed and Matchbox 20.
Okay.
And so like there was a lot of bands that knew who Kelly was, so they would come rehearse in these 9 rehearsal studios that we had at the warehouse. So all the time that you were there, you were either talking to a band and learning about them or what they do or their gear. So I was just inundated with gear all the time. And it was really cool because, yeah, sometimes it is super techie, high-end, this is the coolest thing ever. And then sometimes it's as simple as just a small little power box that you built because it was going to make your life easier up by the drum kit.
Right.
So, yeah, so meeting Lucas really had a big impact, and it made me be, I think, a little more humble because he would always call me out, and I would call him out. And I would go back to school, and I would tell people, and I would learn. And at Full Sail, it was all the high-end stuff. So here's another tale in being humble. I would go and like put my hands on the new D5 console, you know, and it was in this room, and it was funny. It was like you would open the door, and it was like this dark room, and you'd hit the light, and it would shine on this console. And I mean, it looked
like, oh,
yeah, it was like super like I can't even think of the term, but yeah, it was that.
Yeah, like this is a gift from heaven
Exactly.
for your audio use.
Yeah. You won't touch this for many, many years,
Yes,
but learn on it.
But you may look.
And that's what it was. It was you got to put your hands on the top of the line stuff. Well, there I'd be 1 a.m, you know, just digging into these consoles as if I was going to touch them the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd wake up, go to, you know, my 9 a.m. class, let's just say, or even my 1 p.m. class. And, you know, they're 4 hours. And I'd get done, and Kelly would have called me and been like, hey, I got a loadout. You want to come do it? Or, hey, I need some help loading gear, or whatever it could have been. So then I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Well, this is where I really started to push myself, because now I wanted that a perfect attendance. I wanted to be accountable. So it started turning into my first take at what the road would be, these 15, 16, 18, 20-hour days.
Yeah, early mornings, late nights.
Grab a nap or study whenever I could. But the nice part is my studying kind of was live. Like I'd go to school.
Well, you were getting to practice what you had learned, which was then as if you were just studying extra.
It was, while the other kids would only get an extra 4 hours and then go home and study,
right?
Have beer,
quote unquote,
and beer bongs and study. I would go and study, though. I would go study at these shows, and it was a different type, clearly, but it benefited me so much, because the way that a lab instructor is going to tell you about a piece of gear is very lab instructor like.
Right.
It's very textbook. It's very, these are the right terminologies, and this is the signal flow through this. Well, in the live world with Kelly, it was like, all right, kid, I don't really have time to tell you exactly what this transfer is happening, but this is the gist of it. Now we need to go do X, Y, and Z for it to actually work, though. Yeah. So it was cool to like be able to hear about it, touch it a little bit in the labs, and then actually go do something with it. And part of, I think a lot of people look at the road as this glam life, because you don't look at the road and think, oh, these guys are running a cable that's 330 feet long through popcorn and
yeah, I mean, and how heavy are those cables? They seem very heavy.
I mean, some cables can be thousands of pounds, you know. If you're talking about, you know, 4/0 feeder, you know, at 100 feet, there's, I don't even know, a lot of pounds. Yeah. Put it this way,
you get no workout.
You couldn't pick it up by yourself. I mean, you could probably try, but you weren't going to go far.
Not going to move it far, yeah.
But like an XLR weighs, I don't know, a pound, maybe.
Okay.
But that there is something kind of funny to that. It's like, okay, well, yeah, one XLR is not going to hurt your arm wrapping up. But if you had to wrap 50 XLRs.
Yeah, that's different.
Suddenly that 1 pound turns into a lot more weight, because now it's such a repetitive process. Right. And touring is repetitive, and that's why so many people on tour create looms, and they life hack, because they're trying to save time. They're trying to do these things that don't wear them out, because they're going to have to go do it tomorrow. Working for Kelly and working for these smaller companies, it's always a one-off. Everything's different all the time. So yeah, like one show might be one talking head and, you know, a couple monitors on stage, but you turn around the next day and you have a 15-piece band. Yeah. You know,
it really has to, hearing you say that just now, for me at least, it definitely gives me an even better appreciation for what the venues have to deal with. Since, like you just said, it's not like you're out on tour with one artist and you're doing the same show in different venues, of course. So you have to like tweak things, but it's still the same show. Yeah. But a venue is having to deal with a completely different show with different variables every single time.
think about here in Nashville, the Bridgestone Arena is a pretty busy arena. Like,
it's very busy. There's something going on in that place almost every day of the week,
and so
year round.
The only thing
I love that arena.
The only thing that they don't have that would make their life even that much harder is going from hockey to basketball to,
we might soon.
But so the MSG, I use that one a lot because I do love MSG.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an amazing arena, but inside MSG, they go from the Knicks to the the
Rangers?
The Rangers,
mm-hmm.
Yep. And then I was going to say that I was like the Knights? No, that's wrong.
The Rangers.
The Rangers into, freaking whoever, Marshmallow, playing the next night.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those are simple because, for one is frozen water that you have to clear
you've got to
everything.
Totally change the floor.
Yeah, the floor has to change. So shows are so in depth, and by knowing these things, you can calibrate your day a little bit better. Like if you know that you're going into an arena that is just a busy arena, don't walk in with the worst attitude in the morning if something isn't perfect.
Right.
And it's because, maybe they had a giant show in there the night before and they really only had 2 hours of sleep before they could turn everything over.
Or maybe no sleep.
Yeah, and that is what a lot of the local audio companies deal with, because a lot of times they are doing so many of these, one-off type shows where they're going to, catches me out.
Mm-hmm.
Like at Kelly, for instance, we would go from Tampa one day to Daytona the other day, down to Fort Lauderdale the next day, and all of that wears on you. And it's not like you have a giant crew or, so you have to sleep when you can. You have to coordinate your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I started to learn how to do by going to school, then having to go to labs, and then by going and doing shows with Kelly.
It's busy.
It was very busy. Very humbling, though, in the sense that he never let me slide.
That's good.
It was really good. He had a teaching way about him that he clearly wanted me to win.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't going to just let me slide through.
Right.
And not learn or grow or be better.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, we're going to fast forward a little because there's a lot of the same things up until I graduated Full Sail.
Okay.
I couldn't work every day, clearly, because I had school and all this other stuff. So through Full Sail, there was so much to me getting out. But the best part about it, while everybody else was wondering what they were going to go do, Kelly had so many real talks with me because he had toured.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually a drummer in a band.
Oh, okay.
Funny enough,
I feel like we all come from being in a band at some point before we're like, oh, I'm not really good enough to make it. I'm going to work in the industry for the people that actually made it.
I came from Hooters.
I came from a band.
Yes, you did.
I did.
We should play that right now.
No,
actually, I found it. And
no, you didn't.
Oh, okay. I'm going to find it, though.
We can discuss when it's my turn to talk about my growth in my career. We don't have to discuss right now.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. So Full Sail, leaving, the one thing that me and Kelly had a couple of really good talks with was that he was like, look, the road is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to it, but it's not all that's cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that arrogance of me would be like, no, I want to tour though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, thanks for the opportunity, but I want to leave.
Right.
Well, I look back on that now and I can see why he wanted me to stay, because he was investing in me. He wanted me to stay in his company because I took care of his stuff, and I was growing with his stuff, and we were growing and getting new things would come, like we didn't have the $1 billion budget. So when we could, we would buy a new set of speakers, or we would buy certain items. And so to me, wanting to leave Kelly, looking at it now, I'm like, dang, yeah, I kind of did him dirty. Though he had such love for me that he was like, well, one day you're gonna leave.
Mm-hmm.
Just pump the brakes, kid.
Yeah.
Let's learn a
little more. You don't have to leave tomorrow. You're not ready.
Exactly. And so I left Full Sail with the confidence knowing that I didn't have to go find a job,
mm-hmm.
which was in so many ways lovely,
Mm-hmm.
but then in so many ways, it started to mess with my mental, like, health.
Okay.
And I say mental health because, for instance, one of my friends went and got a job at Claire
Okay.
and instantly was out on a world tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time he came back and we all went down to Wall Street, and it was one of the random days that we didn't have a show.
Yeah.
Because working for Kelly was almost like 6 days a week.
Right.
If I wasn't working in the shop, getting ready for a show or fixing something,
Then you were working at a
I was
show.
working at a show.
Mm-hmm.
So here I was, like, we had a day off. He came into town, and Lucas always loves to tell the story because I didn't think that it would affect me this way, ever not reaching a goal, but at the same time, it was the first time that I cried over something.
Really?
As like an adult. Like, I remember we got so drunk, and well, that's probably the problem
I'm
too.
sure that was, part of it.
I was just so jealous because
You had
I wanted
intense
that.
FOMO.
Oh, I had FOMO to the 1,000,000th degree, and it wasn't against him. It was against myself that I thought I was all of a sudden failing because I was working at this local audio company,
Versus,
and I spent all this money to go to school, and woe is me, and poor me. I want to be on tour. I want this. You know, I was starting to become selfish.
Right.
Even more selfish than I had ever been in my entire life, because I was starting to obsess about this road. And I think that I never expressed it to anyone. So maybe that was also my issue, is that I'm
sure that
holding
was
it
also
inside.
very unhealthy. Yeah, you're internalizing all of that.
I had started dating this girl, you know, from my hometown, and, you know, looking back at our relationship, she was awesome. I, unfortunately, was obsessed with the road. And so that played into me not being a good person to her, because then I was insecure because I wasn't fulfilling my goals.
Right.
You know, like, I wasn't doing my job. I wasn't making it. Gosh, I mean, laundry list of stuff that started to come through this. But Kelly, through this whole time, still pushed me, still gave me these opportunities to do. I mean, he let me mix in his company. He started to let me mix down on Wall Street, I mean, a month in.
Wow.
So through Full Sail, I was mixing. So now all of a sudden I was a little conceited too, because I could mix. I could set these shows up. I could bring in these stages. I could do lighting. I could go up in the roof and pull points. It was this whole laundry list of stuff. So then all of a sudden it was like, well, you know, whatever. Touring's whatever. Dumb. I don't need it.
Right.
I'll just be a Billy badass here in, you know, Orlando.
Right.
And yeah, it kind of started to happen though. Like, all of a sudden I started to pick up these mixing gigs at these other little places because I'd met like the Jeff Kaplans and like the Todds and these other guys that worked in the industry around Orlando, because there's a giant market down there.
Right.
If there's not a trade show going on, there's a show going on.
For sure.
I mean, it's huge too.
Right.
I mean, there's Disney it's a giant place. And then there's Daytona, and it has bike week and motorcycle week and boat week and
Right.
week after week
Week
after
after week after week, all the weeks.
all the weeks. And so all I was doing was just stacking up my resume of, like, sure, to some people it's like, oh yeah, but that's local. It's like, yeah, but it's kind of harder in a way. Like, that was the one thing that I started to realize when I started touring. I was like, oh, this is easy compared to some of these local companies who have to come in and struggle to put on a show because of gear requirements, or you know, and unfortunately in this business there's a lot of guys that think, and I was one of them, think so highly of ourselves that when we walk into a place and it doesn't have exactly what we want, that suddenly we can become asshats to everyone and belittle people because they don't have the exact gear. Well, not everybody is a multi-billion-dollar world's largest touring company. You know, a lot of people, there's a lot of mom and pop shops that have great stuff. They have to
afford all the other stuff.
Yeah, and and that was one thing that started to become apparent to me, because through working with Kelly, I was able to land a job. I can't remember. Maybe Lucas had met them first, but we were able to start working at Hard Rock Live.
Oh, very cool.
But as stagehands.
Ah.
So I early on got a chance to be the stagehand to these Shokos and Claire's and Eighth Days and Rat Sounds and all these different audio companies that would come in with shows.
Mm-hmm.
And we had anyone from ZZ Top to, Story of the Year.
Awesome.
These like, to me, awesome bands. And Hard Rock Live was cool because, with Kelly, we would do a lot of local bands. We would do the Harley Davidson Budweiser stage at a Harley Davidson on a Saturday morning before they go ride their motorcycles. And we'd have, Joe Bob and Joe Bob playing, Leonard Skinner's greatest hits up on stage.
Right.
Everybody's having a blast and loving it. But to me, I'm like, I can't really.
Like, I'm working with a cover band. Like, come on.
Yeah, like this cover band isn't really going to do me justice on my resume. But what is going to do me justice is my job with Kelly.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, I was given this opportunity to work at Hard Rock Live. Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, here's another stepping stone in my career, and I get to learn more now. And this is probably like 2007-ish.
Okay.
So I'd been out of school for a little while. And it was really, really cool because being a stagehand is like being the cashier behind, the Taco Bell register.
Yeah.
You see it all. You get told it all. You get called so many different names because, and back then I think, God bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
And back then, I don't think cell phones had really taken off. The internet hadn't taken off. Like slamming people online really wasn't a thing. It was kind of words of mouth,
Right.
So
yeah.
If you're playing Hard Rock Live, you're probably playing Houses of Blues. You're probably playing the other Hard Rocks. So we would get these like guys in that had been playing small venues, and small venues are hard.
Club tours are tough.
And every artist wants to, I shouldn't say every artist, but a lot of artists, their designers or their team want to put on the biggest show in every venue.
Can't fit that in every room.
Some days it was like, wow. Yeah. I do not know how there are 4 semis sitting outside this tiny little place. But,
yeah, that's insane.
Oh, it would be insane.
Which is so funny because like you would assume that they would have talked about that with the venue in their production advance for the show, but...
Well... the stage was huge. Mm-hmm. You could put it in there. It's just the logistics of getting 4 semis, and then what do you do with all these road cases? Where do you put all this stuff? Yeah. Wait,
you're gonna have to fill the venue with people.
There's still 4
cases can't stay in there.
Yeah, there's still 4 opening acts that have to figure out their way. So,
oh my gosh,
all these things,
all that backline.
Well, here's a great example of a small venue that will pack it in. The House of Blues in Boston.
I love that venue, and that's actually a fairly good sized House of Blues. I've been to some that are even smaller.
Well, do you know where you load in?
No, I actually never
right through that front
played
door.
A show there. I just went to a show
right across
from Fenway.
They put a little ramp for you to go from street to curb through the front door, and then you go front door ramp like down into the pit there.
Yeah.
And then you do bigger ramp up on the
stage. Oh my gosh.
Actually, I think now you can go right in the front door, and then they put the ramp right there. But I've played it with a few different artists.
Yeah.
Like I played it with Paul Simon one time, and we had a 12-piece full 9-foot grand piano.
Stage is not that big.
We never not put that up.
Oh my gosh.
So shows like that, it's like, is it possible to put them in there? Of course it is. But the logistics behind it is, well, for one, it's a smaller team inside a lot of these places because it's, they have an in-house crew that does a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that was Hard Rock Live down in Orlando. There was maybe, let's say 50 people on the roster, but then there was only like really 15 that worked all the time because the others had other gigs or other parts to their lives. And so I got to experience being a stagehand. Mm-hmm. And it was always, I know last time I was talking about an XLR cable, and I was like, yeah, the things and the things and the things do the things. If I really wanted to, I could have like given you a complete dialed, explanation. But no one listening or watching is going, please tell me what an XLR does.
Right.
That's kind of like being a stagehand. You have a speaker, cool. I really don't care to know what speaker it is. Just tell me the easiest way or where you want it placed. How, like the
you're doing a lot of the grunt work.
Oh, you're doing all the grunt work.
Yeah.
And so I would get these guys in there and they would just be jerks. They would I'd be like, hey, do you want me to take this cable here and run it over there? And they'd be like, that is a blah, blah, blah cable with a blah, blah, blah connector. And it plugs into that blah, blah, blah speaker over there. And I would just buy it. I'd be like,
Yeah.
And it started to teach me manners in a way. Like I was always grown up with manners, but it started to teach me like road etiquette that I didn't realize. So though I was still bitter and angry because now I'm getting yelled at or scolded or talked down to by these road crews that I wanted to be, I also started to see who I didn't want to be. And knowing that I'm not technical, I knew that I would never be the complete jerk. Unfortunately, I turned into a jerk at times on the road. But I would quickly get pretty humbled when I would think back to how people used to talk to me. And it was hard. And I think we all try to go through images. And I've always been a person who wanted to hold a good image of myself. But at the same time, I also want people to be like, oh, yeah, that's Phil. Like,
right.
He's the man.
Watch out for that dude.
So working at Hard Rock, working with Kelly, I'm learning 2 different skills now. I'm kind of learning what it's like to be a stagehand and how to deliver messages. Because working for Kelly, I was doing it all myself.
Right.
So, all right, now I'm picking up 2 skills again. Like, all right, cool, this is awesome. And in this industry, it's always changing. It's like the iPhone. Each year, there's new gear, there's new pieces, there's new everything.
Right.
Because it's technology, so it gets better. And I would, with Kelly though, I wouldn't always get to get that part though, but with Hard Rock I would, because these guys would come in and after sound check, you could always tell who was willing to chat you up or willing to talk. And at first I was like the in and the out crew, so I didn't get to hang out all day, be able to like look at stuff and then, all right, you guys beat it.
Get out of here.
See you tonight at, your callback's 10 p.m.
Right.
Then all of a sudden it was like, hey, Phil, you want to start being like, you and Lucas want to be the all day crew? It's like, oh, yeah. Because now we get to like eat catering.
Yeah.
It was like this, like, I don't know.
To hang out and meet the people that are actually on the tour. And
and Lucas wanted to tour too. So it was really cool because now all of a sudden we were kind of living that like day life at least and saying like, oh, cool. We get to be here with the touring crew.
Right.
But I got the opportunity to ask the questions. So I got to even pick more people's brains and I got to continue to learn. And Claire started to really stand out. Partly because when they came through, they were the bomb.
Yeah.
They had the best stuff. They had the coolest stuff. They had the newest stuff. All of their stuff was very innovative and easy to use. And for the most part, the crews were just cool too. I was like, all right, like, but with everybody, you can get a jerk anywhere. But I started to really say like, okay, Claire. Brace, I don't know if you remember him from the last story.
I do.
Well, I know you do, but
I was like, he was at our wedding. I do remember Brace.
Brace had left, like I said, Full Sail when I was going there. And we had always stayed in touch. And I think he went and did cruise lines for a hot minute.
Okay.
Which is another part to it's a giant part to the industry. But he all of a sudden was working at Claire, and I don't remember where or how that happened, but he was working at Claire.
Okay.
And I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Now Steve's there, you're there. Like, this is cool. I'm meeting other people from Claire now because I'm doing these shows with these guys. I was like, maybe Claire is where I need to go.
Yeah.
And Brace, was a giant supporter, and he was like, I think you should.
Time to take that next step.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, all right. And being kind of the cocky guy I was.
You're like, yeah, I'm ready.
I did. Oh, I was like, yeah, I got this. This is mine in the bag. I've gone through Full Sail. I know the lingo. I know all this stuff.
Right. You've gotten some experience.
I'm mixing. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing,
You're thinking it can't be any more detailed or difficult than this.
I've seen these guys come in with their colored cables.
They don't do anything. I can do this.
I don't even have taped cables. I could tape some cables and write some things on them. No.
Totally different.
So I don't think that they had maybe they were coming through Full Sail, and I had spoken back with a guy named Tink, and he was like, hey, Claire's coming in. Or maybe it was just putting a resume in. I can't remember to be 100% because I was obviously partying at this point pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I was back into
the music industry will do that to you.
Well, it's the service industry because we would get done on Wall Street, and a lot of local shows aren't like a tour where it's ends at 11 and then you have to load out for 2 hours. Some of these were like music in the park.
Right. Though, it's over at like 9.
Yeah. So though we had to put up a whole stage and speakers and run all the exact same stuff for a rock band, well, it was just some lady, reading poetry in the middle of the park. So, okay, once she's done, we can pack this up and then let's go hit the bar because tomorrow,
right down the street,
all we have to do is take the preloaded rig that we've already loaded into the other truck down to, Budweiser and set up 2 speakers or whatever, so I was able to start partying and stuff. And so that's why some of these memories could be a little clouded,
skewed,
a little clouded.
That's it.
So if anybody does hear something that isn't, like my time frame is a little off, please correct me. So I put it, let's just say I put it in the application. Okay. And I'm pretty sure I used brace on there, and I'm telling Kelly about this and he's like, you're going to hate the road, kid. You're going to hate, you should just stay here.
You're not ready. Yeah. You have a lot more to learn. Just wait a little longer.
I think that that's what it was. I don't think that he was telling me that I could never go tour. I just think he was doing it in a nicer way than just saying, hey, you still suck.
Yeah, you're still very green. Like, I know you think you know everything. And you just want to ride on a tour bus and go see the world, but there's a lot more to it. Yeah. Especially if you're actually out on a tour. I mean, there's so many more moving parts.
So what? It's just it is hysterical, the stuff that I did in Kelly's shop that would have would have ended up being catastrophe on the road. Let's just say. And not catastrophe like like I'm killing people, but for instance, one of the most humbling moments of my life is when you're dealing with like powered speakers. The whole idea is the amplifiers are one of the last items on. So you turn the consoles on, you turn you get everything else run and on and powered up. You get your processors on, you get all these things, then you power on the amplifiers, right? Well, they make speakers that have powered amps in them. The same thing applies. You do all the other stuff around them. And then when you're ready and you've checked all the inputs and the outputs and they're muted and they're, blah, 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 blah. Then you power on your speakers and your amplifiers. So we were building this, we were getting this little rig together. And Lucas and I loved playing music way louder than it should be in this shop.
Of course.
And so that day I was like, you know what? I'm going to set up the little C rig and I'm going to just play some music through it and make sure all the cables are while I'm doing the cable stuff, I'll just listen to music. And I did, and it was super simple. And what I did wrong, though, is I had turned the speakers on first. And so when I powered up the console, it blew a couple of the speakers up.
Oopsies.
And we needed that rig for a show just in a couple days.
Yikes.
So, but that was really humbling to me to show me that I wasn't ready still. Well,
But your ambition got the best of you.
My desire to leave got the best of me. Had nothing to do with I just wanted to go on tour. That's all I wanted. I'd cried. I'd blown speakers up. You name it. All I wanted to do is go on tour. And here now another one of my people that I considered a friend was touring. And it's like, all I want to do is be on this bus. All I want to do is get to this bus.
I'm getting left behind.
Because, I'm hearing the stories. He would start to stay on our couch and stuff and come and visit. And so I put in my first application. And I talked to this guy. I get a phone call or an email, let's say, and this guy named Dave Lester sets up this interview. And Dave is, been in the industry for a long time at this point. He came from Shoko, the company in Texas. And I didn't know really much about him. All I knew is that you either talk to Leon or you talk to Dave. And everybody said, make sure you talk to Leon because he's real simple. Like, not simple in the sense that like he's a simple person. He'll ask you like 2 or 3 questions.
To the point.
You're like, hey, do you like touring? Do you like tour buses? What? Okay, yeah, cool, awesome.
You're hired.
There might be one technical question in there.
But you got Dave.
Dave, though, on the other hand, was like, and I think someone, maybe Brace had prepped me. He's like, hey, he's probably going to ask you about this console and these things of like power and blah, 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 blah. So, all right, cool. I'm ready. I didn't study. I probably went drinking the night before. And sure enough, he calls me and it was grill session to the max. I mean, I thought Kelly could be blunt and to the point. I mean, I answered one question and he was like, absolutely not. I was like, what?
Wait, what?
Wait, hold on. Like, I just did that the other day. And he was like, that is like bad, really, really bad, unsafe.
Absolutely not how you should
I was
do
like,
that.
oh gosh. Like, so then all of a sudden, like, then the interview changed. And then I went backwards a million steps because it was like, holy cow. I thought that I was just applying to be like a PA guy, but I guess their PA guys know all this stuff too.
Yeah.
And well, let's just say that our conversation put me in the ditch. I mean, it like put me in my place. He destroyed me. And at the end of it, there was something that really stuck out. I was like, well, he goes, well, it's nice talking to you. You know, I can just tell you right now, you're not Claire material. And I was like, oof, dang, like, oh, like that right there. Like, I mean, I just saying that right now, it hurt my heart again because all I wanted was to be there.
Claire, yeah.
And I can picture the words coming out of my mouth. I was standing outside of the shop on my cell phone. It was like a sunny day in Florida, and suddenly like clouds and lightning and thunder all came just above me though.
Right.
And I said, well, thank you for your time, Dave. You know, I would really like to do this again, or I would really like to apply in the future and show you that I can learn. And I really am going to take what you said to heart, and I'm going to go out there and try harder. And he goes, you know, honestly, you're not really what we're looking for. I don't think you'll ever be what we're looking for.
Oh my gosh! Ouch!
I'm not kidding you. Like straight up told me.
Well, he was like, no.
He was like,
never gonna.
You'll probably have a great career at a local audio company, but you're not
gonna get to be with the big boys.
You'll never play with the big boys. And it like, oof.
That motivated you like nothing else.
First, it tore me down. I mean, at first,
of course. You were gutted.
Oh, I was just like destroyed because then it was like, well,
like, what am I doing this for if I'm not going to get to go live out my dream?
Well, then it was like a little bit of anger too. It's like, well, what am I doing working at this place if they're just telling me stuff that isn't going to ever get me to this spot?
Right.
Though it works in this house, there was a different level of what they wanted. And it wasn't because Kelly was doing it wrong. It was because
he was doing it at a smaller level.
Well, Claire just has a different, they have to abide by so many worldwide standards that though sometimes things like what we did at Kelly's worked perfectly because of the situation, the liability is so much bigger in some of those world tour situations. And so I get it now. At the time, crushed, brutal. I mean, it killed me inside. So I don't remember how I dealt with it, but I know it wasn't healthy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we went maybe as time went on though, it lessened, and me and Lucas grew. I grew with Kelly. I got to do some amazing shows. You know, I got to work with Bob Saget one time. You know, I mean,
that's awesome. May he rest in peace.
It was such a cool thing because though I wasn't leaving on a bus with Bob Saget that night. I will always remember handing him a guitar that night. You know, I always remember doing certain things that just you don't get to do all the time.
Right.
And that was the cool part. And so here I was. I said, okay, well, maybe I'm not Claire material. Well, a few months or, down the road, let's say this is 2008 now, because I think I worked at Full Sail for a year and a half before I left. So I left Florida in 2009.
Okay.
And that's where I'm trying to get to. But I'd always stayed in touch with the Full Sail guys like John
Yeah.
Sheldon and Dave Dean and Kenny Robinson and some of these other guys, Vince, and and I would go visit every once in a while because I lived there.
Right.
So I was able to go and visit these people. And sorry, it was just I wanted to keep an eye on the clock.
Oh.
I wanted to go visit them, and they were always so warm and welcoming, and I would come in, and at one point, Dave had said to me, like, hey, I'm in need of a small club style lab instructor, kind of like what Brace was. And I was
Okay.
like, oh, here's my opportunity to learn more again.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I clearly didn't make it to Claire, but maybe, just maybe, through working at Full Sail, I can brighten something in my career path.
Mm-hmm.
Even though working with Kelly and Hard Rock was fun, I still wanted to tour.
Right.
It was always
Right.
there. Like that didn't...
You hadn't given up just because you'd been told no.
No. Oh my gosh, no. Like you said, once the pain...
Yeah.
Once I drained the pain from my body, I was like, okay, time to really excel. And
I'll show them.
And God's crazy. He I didn't believe in God then, but he clearly put me into like going to Full Sail that day or being in touch with Dave Dean that day, and Dave saying, hey, I need an audio guy for this lab. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's what Brace used to do. Yeah, I'm really good at small club gigs.
Yep.
Because I was working at the Social and these other little venues around town. So I was like, oh, I got this. And so here I am working for Kelly, working at Hard Rock Live, and then I sign up to be a lab instructor.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes, it went amazing. It also went completely sideways as I became a lab instructor because I've really started partying and just being a horrible person in so many other ways. But being there, all of a sudden I was like, okay, here's one more opportunity to better my life. And the first night I show up and I was going to do like a late training, lab kind of situation. And it was either John or Ken. I can't remember which one was going to be the one that I shadowed. But I show up and they're like, hey, things changed. This guy that we had as lab instructor, we had to fire him. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it stinks. They're like, yeah, it's for advanced show production. I was like, oh, okay, well, that stinks. Like, I didn't know what they were
Why are we even talking about this?
Yeah, and they were like, well, do you think you could do it? Internally, I said no.
Right.
But what came out of my mouth was, yeah, sure.
Another opportunity to learn.
And I'm pretty sure Joel, the one that I just went around the world with Queen and Adam Lambert, I think he was in that first lab instruction class I did.
Awesome.
But it went something like this. I was like, yeah, sure. Okay, cool. Because I got to go do this, and then Ken has to go do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you in the D5 room, in that console with the... And I was
You're
like...
like, wait, so now I get to like teach other people how to use this?
I'd probably touched it twice.
Up until that point?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So they're like, you got this, right? I was like, sure. Yeah, sure. No problem.
I've always called moments like that being baptized by fire. It's
Whoa.
like you're thrown to the wolves. You better figure out how to survive.
Oh my gosh. Maybe I showed up at 9. So I got to watch one of them give one, and it was a 2-hour one. So it might have been 11. There it was. Showed up at 11. It was a 2-hour course. And I watched one of them give a 2-hour course. It was my only crap. And the whole time I'm going, oh, oh yeah.
Yep, no
oh,
problem.
Yeah. So whoever was giving it was doing it from the back of the console. So you're looking at a LED screen backwards. It's a touch screen too, right? And this console, it was at the time was super deep. I mean, it just had every bell and whistle, and you could customize it. While the other ones had certain features you could customize, this was like driving a Ferrari versus driving a really nice Mustang.
Gotcha.
And I just remember standing back there and being like, oh gosh, what is going on? And they're pushing buttons. And I'm like, okay, I kind of remember that. I kind of remember that. Oh, okay. Just hold that thought. What did he just say? Oh my gosh, what did he say about that? Well, I just went, I tried to take in as much as I could.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, they're like, all right, So the next class will be in probably in like, 30 minutes. You good? I was like, totally good. I said, but you don't mind if I just sit in here and just play around on it? It's been a minute since I'd seen one. It'd probably been 2 years.
Yeah. And I've also touched it twice.
So I was like, yeah. And they were like, oh, of course. Yeah. Here's the keys to the building. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is like, I should not be a lab instructor.
Why did I say yes?
Here's the roster. I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to backfire. I just go teach the little club lab with like, the 4 cables and a power box.
Right.
No. Don't do that because you're just going to end up there forever.
Right.
Do what is going to push you to the absolute limit. And it was staying in that room. And then here comes these students who think I've done it.
They're like, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's my professor.
But I was the exact person that when I went through Full Sail, like, sure, I was doing some stuff and I was good at some stuff. I was the one now teaching because I couldn't do.
But that's the best way to learn is by teaching.
Oh my gosh, I learned so much in that first hour.
I bet.
I'd be like, I'd go to push a button. I'd be like, and then this one does, nope, not that. This one, oh my gosh, look there's a bat in here.
Like, oh, let me figure it out what I do.
And there was moments like that. It was like, hey, do you guys want to take an early break? And they're like, oh yeah, we'd love to go smoke a cigarette. I'd be like, let's go have a smoke break. The class was supposed to be like a 2-hour class, probably ended up being like a 2.5-hour class because I just kept having to be like, go smoke another cigarette. I
gotta go figure something out real quick.
But I did it. I finished it. I think I went through 4 labs that night. So by the last one,
you felt way better.
I had it down.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, can you teach this? And it was like, you mean advanced show production? So I'm not even going to be in the other. They're like, no, we'll find someone else to do that one. I think you'll be a perfect fit for. And then I was in the A building. I was like,
you've made it.
It was a moment of that. And then I got to work next to these guys that I looked up to. And through that, there's so many tales to this Full Sail thing that we could go for hours. But what I'm going to do is I became a lab instructor. I got to work there. I was working not only so Kelly, Hard Rock.
Lab instructor.
At first, it was a part-time thing.
Oh, and then you
instantly turned into a full-time thing.
Wow.
So I was working. It really boiled back to now I was doing 20-hour days again, like consistently, and then trying to have
being on the road.
Well, then trying to have a relationship, then and then trying to party, and just my life was chaos, and I was teetering at a breaking point. But what I would always allow to break was my relationship with people. And I think that's what I, looking back on it, what a selfish thing that I did because I wanted it so bad. And I really did. And I could apologize to a lot of people. Probably wouldn't take it. But I can say that I know that it's made me who I want to be now. And it's made me see who I want to raise our kids to be. And it's nothing like I was to people.
Yeah.
There's certain things about my life that were amazing because I've always been, I've pushed myself that hard, but
it comes at a cost.
It did come at a cost because I did it the wrong way.
Right.
There was ways to do it the right way and I did it the wrong way. So I worked at Full Sail for about a year and a half, and I got to learn so much and grow so much with so many different students and faculty members and gear. And then I was growing with Kelly still, I was doing all these shows for him and mixing and learning how to, ring wedges and do monitors and tune front of house PAs. And then I was working at Hard Rock and learning how to deal with people. And then they would, I was slowly doing things, mixing in this giant room that I would watch people struggle with all the time. And I was learning these tricks from these other engineers that were doing it down there. And then I was doing like one-offs with, I got to work for this girl, Corey Arkin. I'd go mix her every once in a while. I got to work with a couple local bands down there. Then I started to meet people that's where I met like Chris Kirkpatrick. And, and what's funny is now we see him here in Nashville because our buddy Josh knows him.
Great.
And yeah, his family is amazing. And it's so funny because when we, the few times that we've hung out, we can name all the same people that ran in the same circle.
Which is just hysterical, like of all the things.
It is funny. And then, I was on tour with JT, and
Right.
so what I'm boiling down to is, at one point I was doing all this stuff, and my life was, I was starting to see all of a sudden the same trend that I did at Hooters.
Mm-hmm.
I was running my life into the ground. Though I thought it was a healthy way, it was back to being an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
Well, Claire, like I had said in the last podcast, would come into Full Sail a lot, and they would do interviews. And they would do guest, like Leon would come and talk, and we'd have these people come and give us stuff. And so I found out that Claire was doing a job like fair. And it was 2009, and I was over it all. I needed another change, and I was like, okay. They're hiring all the students that I train all the time. I was like, I think I got this. And I talked to Brace, and I asked him, and he said, dude, just do it again. Just try. Yeah. I said, yeah, but they told me to never, ever, 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 ever come back.
No just means not right now.
And he talked me into it. We were living together at the time. So I was living with Lucas, Brace, and I. And then I think there was 2 other roommates. One was my girlfriend, and then another girl at the time. And they both were like, dude, just do it. This has been your biggest dream ever. Just freaking do it. Stop talking about it. So I reapplied to Claire. And this time, though, I had to go and have an interview with, I'm going to say Leon. And I passed the Leon first test. And what's funny is one of my students at the time, who ended up becoming my roommate later on in life, he was out waiting in the waiting room while I was inside, right? Okay. So he wasn't, he didn't get there and saw me go in. He just knew that someone was in there talking to Claire. And as I came out, he was like, oh, well, there goes my because no one knew how many they were taking. So it was like, well, there goes my chance, because my lab instructor clearly just walked out of an interview with the guy that I'm about to go have. And the funny part about it was that Tim was probably way smarter than me then, and he's still smarter than me now. But I get home, and let's say 2 days later, my phone rings, and it's Dave Lester again. And I really didn't. I did not see that coming. I didn't. I did it strictly to appease the audio gods. Like, okay, fine, I'll throw myself back into the fire one more time for sacrifice. And Dave calls, and he's like, "Hey, Phil."
Never thought I'd talk to you again.
Yeah, 100%. I said, I know you told me to never call back, but I did.
Too bad.
And he was like, I was really surprised but very happy that you called back. And I was like, okay, well, that's awesome. He goes, well, are you ready this time? I said, I'm as ready as I can ever be. And he asked me a series of questions, and I think if he didn't tell me right away, the next day I got a call, and they were like,
you're hired. Welcome to the Claire family.
Welcome to Claire. And it was like...
Did you cry then?
No, I didn't cry. I actually just became a crier this year.
Becoming a parent, I feel like, can do that too.
I know. I didn't... I had cried that one time out of jealousy, and then I think I was like, I'm never crying again, because that was like the biggest baby move I ever did. So I held it in for many, many years. But when I got that call, it was crazy, because my life was at a even though it was at a high in many ways, it was at a very, very low point. And I said, okay, well, here we go. And I went and, put in my time with Kelly. I think I sat in his office and we chatted, and he just told me. No, I don't even know what he told me, but I know it was sweet.
I'm sure he was very proud.
I would say that he has had many proud moments in life, but I could say that I was one of his little proteges that he helped. So everybody was really sweet. Everybody saw me off in the best light. And I remember even my students, I remember I come across these photos every once in a while of me, and it's such a horrible, it's me, and I'm in like my boxers because I'm so drunk. Like my pants kept falling down, but I'm like all these like students were all taking photos. At that time, I wasn't there anymore, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, I was just a mess. And so I packed up my Ranger again, and this time I headed north.
Wow. To
Crazy.
be continued?
Yeah. Let's end this one.
I think that's a great segue into the next episode being all about your climb at Claire and how you really did reach the pinnacle of your career.
Crazy. It's like wild to look back on this, but it's fun because right now, where I left my career with Claire, it's like I can see a lot of these, my motivation is at an all-time high again. So it's really cool. And there's something to be said about going through really, really hard times in life and coming out on the other side unknowing what's about to happen in a way, because I made it to Claire, but it didn't mean I made it in Claire.
Right.
So it's like
you had gotten your foot in the door. Now you had to prove yourself.
Yeah. And it was wild, but yeah. So let's end that here. We'll do one more of these episodes. Thank you so much to everyone who's taken the time to listen to this and go with me on this journey. Some of you have been to my shows. Some of you have actually seen what the company did, and so I think the next part will be even more enjoyable for people who have sat through this, because it really is going to get to the shine and the glimmer.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of other parts to it, but we can always, I'm sure we'll hit on some things as we go along this, but I just want to say thank you again to everyone. Please make sure to subscribe. Please follow us on whatever platform you like podcasts. What else? Oh, go visit the Etsy store.
Yeah, check out the Etsy store. Let us know what you think.
We've been recording some really cool interviews, so after this, we'll be dropping a couple awesome people and their stories.
Yeah.
I even have a friend that's from Mexico that we're gonna have on. So yeah, there's a lot of really, really, really cool stuff coming up, and so I just again say thank you all so much. Killcliff, we're drinking Flaming Joe's today.
Yeah.
And I like it. You're not sold, but
no, I like it. It's not my favorite, but I like that it's a healthy energy drink,
and it supports
with natural energy, which is awesome, and it supports the Navy SEAL Foundation, which I will absolutely get behind.
Yeah, I love it.
God bless our military.
I really like this one. Thanks, Joe Rogan, for the Killcliff Ignite.
Yes, delicious. Well, cheers.
Cheers and bottoms up.
Bottoms up. See
everyone.
You guys next time.
Cheers. I have too much.